Welcome back. Today's episode will be a little different. There's no entry. We're just going right into it. Let's get started. Today, I'm going to discuss what just happened in the Star Wars universe with the Acolyte. My observations and my thoughts, the Star Wars universe and its original audience, which is you and I, majority of the baby boomers and the early Gen Xers, were just shit on for the sole purpose of pushing an alphabet agenda. This was, if you can think about it, you can kind of confirm this when you look at the pre-release interviews done by the Disney folks. With all agendas, there's a second, third, or more order of effect or goal within that agenda that the wokesters over at Disney also tried to push out. And the woke, if you think about it, is the Western world's way of saying and pushing modern day neo-Marxism. So in my optics, the wokesters' goal with the Acolyte was to disrupt, deny, or destroy any intergenerational commonality and how the Star Wars universe is viewed and interpreted. What does that mean? Well, it means we, the original audience and fans of the Star Wars universe, I don't see it the same way kids see it these days will. And what were our heroes of yesterday are their enemies and villains of today, and vice versa. It's almost like what's written in the book 1984. So you can rewrite what was in fiction world and everyone will believe it. Then you can rewrite what was in the real world. And it's dangerous. It's a disinformation campaign. So let's get started. As always, this podcast is a safe space from non-woke people. While I try to keep it somewhat above board, if shit has to be said bluntly, it will be. Vegas rules apply here. So if you like what you hear, don't forget to subscribe and hit the button and comment below. First up, the pile of shit that is the Acolyte. And I know Star Wars, it's a universe, it's not real. That's why it's called science fiction. However, it was foundational when it was released for us teens and preteens back in the day. And what I mean by that, when the film was released, it was an event that enabled kids, teenagers, young adults, and not so young adults to have something in common ground to connect. A story of versus evil, or at least a good story of good versus evil, with great special effects for the time. The Empire was tyrannical. It was evil. It had elements of Nazism, fascism, and Maoism, and just to name a few. Think of any shittyism, and that shittyism we were able to include or project onto that Star Wars universe with the Empire. If you were in your right mind, regardless of who you were or where you grew up and where you came from, you wanted to either be Jedi or part of the rebellion, flaws and all. So you could be the naive kid from the middle of nowhere who's never had any great life experience outside of that bubble, or you could be an old warrior who's checked out because they're literally too old for this shit. A ruffian, a scallywag, a pirate who's smuggler, who's only out for themselves, or a princess who's lived a life of luxury and privilege that no one else could enjoy, or very few ever could enjoy. And if you think about it, it's a little bit like what happened in 1776 when a whole lot of people got together. So, of course, Disney, doing the bidding of their neo-Marxist sponsors, or the neo-Marxist leadership inside Disney that's taken it over, instead of worrying about their shareholders, decided that they had to shit all over what back in the day brought people together. Unfortunately for Disney and the woke benefactors, the Acolyte was so bad that both the original and new audiences revolted. Unfortunately for Disney, the risk of the known knowns or the unknown unknowns was either not thoroughly reviewed by the leadership there, or they thought they had all the right players, and by that I mean the actors, directors, writers, and producers, to be able to ram their woke shit down our throats, us and the new generation. And we'll sit around and beg for more. Please, sir, may I have another? But unlike them, the true fanboys and fangirls had a gag reflex because the series was garbage. Further, and did you notice that the industry paid film critics all wrote that the series was fantastic? This is how corrupt the system is. As they passed out high scores, there were chiclets. Disney since then has tried to do their own woke version of these aren't the droids you're looking for. This isn't what we said They're all running it. They're scrambling. Not that they're trying to change their wokeness, they're just trying to scramble because they're going to take a huge financial loss. So the following are going to be a few examples of why the Acolyte missed the mark. Missed the mark with a core audience. It's just a partial list because there is a ton of shit that they didn't do right or they did terribly. And as I mentioned in the book in 1984, reversism was part of the game. War is peace, security is insecurity, all these other things. So therefore now, when they're pushing out the woke agenda, good is now evil and what was evil is now good. And to make this happen, the Jedi had to be depicted as self-centered, entitled kidnappers, just all in all manipulative asshats, and then more. Incompetent, conniving, you name it, all the bad characteristics were placed on them. They are seen more as oppressors than those who help those who are oppressed. And it's totally opposite of how they're described in all the writings in the comic books and the genre, the canon about the old republic. Now, to me, this is akin to taking the Nazis and the Axis powers and going, Nazis are good, sorry, the Americans and the Allied powers are bad. And to make this case, to say, hey, to make this believable, they're coming up with everything on the side to say, hey, well, the reason that people went to the dark side, from space witches to Sith lords, is because there was something evil that was done by the Americans, the Allied powers, or hell, even colonialism. They're throwing everything in the book and the kitchen sink at us. And oh, sorry, my bad. It was the old Jedi and the old Republic who did something bad. But it's the same mentality. We've seen this story day after day. Also, the male characters, be they human or alien, well, they gave up their man cards. They're like running around a bunch of neutered idiots. They're weak, lazy, driven by feelings. They act more, even the main male character that was in there acted more like a stereotypical high school girl, like that screaming idiot from Bud Light, Dylan, I tuck my junk Mulvaney, comes across as. So everything's reversed when you're looking at the male characters. Instead of telling the story of Helen of Troy, it's now a story of Alan of Troy. And Achilles is now no longer a male warrior, but a warrior queen, female. So of course not, it's not going to go over well. The dialogue for the male characters comes across as if it was an afterthought. But hey, no surprises here because I'm just actually thinking there was a surprise. I'm surprised I never heard one of the male Jedi characters exclaim, "Does these robes make my ass look fat?" Yeah, it was that bad. They were that bitchy, that whiny. And since they couldn't write the strong female characters, they had to make the male characters look ridiculous and stupid and whiny. They did their version of misandryism, and if you complain about it, you're sexist and racist. Also, for a brief moment, when was Star Wars ever a freaking musical? And that's how it comes across. The power of one, the power of two, the power of many. What the F? Did the writers collectively decide that to give the show a little extra pep in the step, they had to merge scenes from The Warrior Queen with the Broadway musicals Moulin Rouge in Chicago? The dance routine they even did was sucky, not even awe-inspiring. And here's the other part. I have to laugh. They're supposed to be an ancient order of witches. Boss bitch witches. Wouldn't you think their chant would have been something more akin to the Gregorian chants of days gone by, just from the female side? But no, it's not how they portrayed it. They portrayed it as if there were characters from the old TV show Saved by the Bell, putting on a high school musical. And lastly, and this is a two-part. First, it was going into, and I hate to call it, but it was big dick energy or coming across like it. Are the writers trying to say something? What's all up in here? So the lead character, a former Jedi in training, who apparently, even though her facial reaction is only one reaction through the whole series, reminds you of Twilight, and she had just seen what was some of her childhood friends when she was still working with the Jedi or under training the Jedi, just got sliced and diced and killed. But however, she gets kidnapped by this murderous Sith Lord and taken back to his planet, and she wakes up and goes out, and he's butt-ass naked coming out of the ocean. And she gets a good view of a man 6 foot tall, 6-pack, and 6 inches, and suddenly she wants to be part of the dark side. It's insulting to women. If a woman saw a fit guy, they're going to say, well, she'll turn all her good stuff away, turn away from the good part of the force, and look at the dark side. So, what are the women really trying to say, the female writers? Now, what's kind of interesting is, and please don't judge me, but this part, when I saw that, it reminded me of the porno version of the original Star Wars movie. I'm just saying it because it's a memory from the 80s. I was a Marine overseas. We saw a lot of shit. But the big dick energy didn't continue. So you couldn't even have continuity because in the last episode, what turned around, that Sith in training or whatever the stranger was, suddenly becomes following her, like her pussy was the sweetest smelling thing known to the world. It was insane. So they couldn't even have continuity. And so he went from BDE to simp, soy boy. So it was really terrible and what's going on. And at the end, it almost sounded like the Jedi that raised her or took her under his wing after he did some bad things, he acted like a little bitch, was a PDF file. So it was kind of strange. All right, let's circle back to what this all has to do with retirement, and it does. Because we baby boomers and early Gen Xers have lived through a lot of historical events and societal changes in our lifetime. We've definitely come a long way, baby, and then some. However, with its revisionist history, the wokesters' agenda was to get us and the newer generations to twist all of those are our experiences. And what I mean by this is for us to question what we know and understand to be true, including core beliefs. Beliefs that we're supposed to have a moral compass, to have pride in nation, in patriotism. If you can destroy it in the fiction world, you can destroy it in the real world. Other countries and cultures are allowed to have these things, but just not us, because it's attempted destruction. Now, many retirees, including us soon-to-be retirees, are generally concerned about the world we leave behind. Continuous misinformation from the mainstream media and the entertainment industry can, is intended to skew retirees, baby boomers, and early Gen Xers alike's perception of the current events and our collective progress over the years. Hollywood and other entities manufacture crap like this to make us feel guilty for shit that we did not do or were never even part of. We grew up in a town that wasn't racist, but really you were racist. You never knew what you were. It's all this gaslighting from general media. And the reason why they do this, because if you buy into the gaslighting, you'll start having to feel this guilt. And if you feel this guilt, you're compelled to make amends. And to make amends nowadays, you usually give money to causes. And it's our retirement money, our retirement dollars. So we have to be mindful. So I think not, because all they're doing is a grifter's grift. Lastly, the intention is to create angst between the generations. What older person wants to take their kids or grandchildren to a movie or have a family night, see their childhood heroes seen by villains by their kids or grandchildren, and basically shit on one episode at a time? I, for one, do not. And besides, it's dying to retire, not dying to retire broke, let alone woke. That's it for today. Curious, concerned, or just want to chat? I'm all ears. Reach out at dyingtoretirepodcast@gmail.com. And if you find yourself nodding along or you just enjoy the ride, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. Hasta luego.